okay, maybe I like this more than I thought. It is provocative, and it is opening up discussion of stuff. You've seen the feature-length musical that promotes the J-Lo album. Now see the documentary that promotes the feature-length musical.
Oh, this didn't work out, and it's fine, and I'm good, and they're good. And all of that was kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it's the clunkily titled The Greatest Love Story Never Told, although as Ben Affleck very wryly points out in this movie, you're telling it.
Seems like you're telling it, yeah.
You gotta subscribe, because if there's a J-Lo movie, we're gonna review it. I'm not in this one either, but you get a lot of Benny Medina. And you get a lot of her producing partners.
A lot of Elaine Goldsmith Thomas.
Way more than we need. But I found this fascinating as on its own and as a companion piece to This Is Me Now, a love story, which we reviewed last week. So this is actually longer at 85 minutes. This is longer than the movie it is the making of about. That was only 65 minutes long.
Look, there's a 3-hour documentary about Ingmar Bergman's Autumn Sonata, which is only about 2 hours. So, not unprecedented.
Okay. But, I found this fascinating from a process perspective alone. If you want to know about mud and various consistencies of mud, it's reminded me of the section of the Beyonce Renaissance movie where she talks a lot about scaffolding. Like if you want to learn a lot about mud, you will. So, a thing that you and I talked about in This Is Me Now was that she's purporting to be, making herself vulnerable here and really naked here. But you always felt like there was that sheen, that meticulous, controlling perfection. And here she does let herself look messy, like no makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, crying, sobbing, like ugly crying sometimes. And I appreciate that. And so I like sort of the behind the scenes of that. I like the process of that. She goes into, it's not just the kind of choreography type of stuff that you might expect. A lot of it is her at home with Ben Affleck, her on set with Ben Affleck. And as a filmmaker, he has his own perspective on what she's doing. And he knows how hard it is to make a film and can tell her about that. And they goof on each other. There's a sort of a funny scene where he is geeking out over all of the lenses in Dave Meyer's camera truck. He's like, ooh, you got this. Look how light it is. And she's like, whatever. So all that stuff is kind of fun. And the fact that she wants to put every part of herself out there and he is not comfortable with that, but he has got a great line here.
Neither is Jane Fonda.
All the Jane Fonda stuff is fascinating. All that, that whole friendship, we'll get to that. But like he says something that I thought was kind of profound, no matter who you are or who you're with. Like, you don't marry a boat captain and then say, I hate the water, right?
Right.
As far as like compromise and showing up for the person that you love, even if you don't necessarily love everything that they do, like that's what a relationship is about. But there's one thing that I thought was shocking in this, which is that he took all their letters, he took all their emails and put them together in this beautiful bound scrapbook when they got back together again. And she took that thing that is so private and like opened it up for everybody to read when they were rehearsing and like
the songwriters.
Oh my God. I'm like, I can imagine that he would feel a little betrayed by that. Like that's a fascinating little tidbit. So from a process perspective, I like this a lot as far as what it took to get this movie made, the money, how she had a deal signed, $30 million, and whoever the streamer was yanked it, and then that she wanted to finance it on her own. And again, Ben Affleck, having made a lot of movies in his life, can tell her like, that's not a thing you do. That's dumb.
Everyone is telling her, no, you never sink your own money into it. But she felt so strongly about having to tell this story as an artist, I'm going to say this.
Okay.
I don't necessarily recommend that you watch either the music video part or the documentary about it. But if you're going to watch one, you should watch both. Because I think they do comment on each other in an interesting way.
Okay.
And like you said, the process stuff is interesting about like how the thing got put together and whether it should have been put together. Like the Jane Fonda stuff is great because Jane Fonda keeps saying like, I'm really rooting for you and Ben this time. And I'm wondering if you're making a huge mistake by being this public about it and by parading your all's personal stuff around this much. And, you know, Jane Fonda should know, like, she's been around and she's been, you know, critiqued in public about her romance choices and her politics choices and you name it, you know.
Yeah.
And so she's very much of like she knows when to put herself out there, like for causes that she believes in, but she also really understands the power of discretion and privacy. And she's, you know, friends enough with Jennifer Lopez to be like, are you sure this is the right thing to do?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you're right. That stuff is also really interesting. And I think if you are like a huge fan of Jennifer Lopez, both of these things are going to be like, mwah, yes, give me more, because she really is, even if she's not giving you everything, she's opening up a lot and she's taking you into the way that she puts this stuff together and why she feels the way she does and how she feels and what's behind it and what she wants to get out of it and all of that stuff. But as someone who's not particularly interested in her music, there is a strong whiff of self-indulgence for me about both of these projects. But again, if you feel compelled to watch one of them, you really should watch both of them, because I think taken together, they're sort of a complete work in a way.
I am not a fan of her music, but I appreciate her hustle. And I appreciate that this documentary gives us a window into the motivation behind that hustle. She was surprisingly candid about a couple of things here that I did not expect. One is about her parents and what her upbringing was really like and what she really thinks about them.
Well, it's funny because I just finished reading the Barbara Streisand memoir. And when Jennifer Lopez talks about like her sort of emotionally distant dad and she calls her mother a narcissist and says that she needed to be the center of attention. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. You know, that is totally the Babs upbringing, you know. And in both of these cases, I thought if these two had parents that actually like gave them what they needed as children, like they would just be happily quiet off doing things somewhere and we'd never know who they were. But the fact that they weren't getting any attention from the people that they needed it from made them determined to get the attention of everyone on the planet, and they succeeded.
Right. Both New Yorkers, both multi-talent, and Jennifer Lopez is watching the way we were. And This Is Me Now, right? So you see that that's the blueprint, and she's, you know, not ashamed about that in any way. She's putting it out there. So the thing with her parents was shockingly candid, and also talking about, if you guys have seen This Is Me Now, one of the numbers takes place in a glass house. It's called Rebound, and it suggests an abusive relationship, you know, the way that's choreographed where the man and the woman are tethered to each other literally and spinning around each other and pushing and pulling. Couple things with that. First of all, that she wanted Anthony Ramos in that, but he wouldn't do it because he's friends with Mark Anthony, her ex-husband and the father of her children. That's really interesting. But also that she mentions that she has been in abusive relationships. And she says, I was never hit, but I was manhandled and I was mistreated in ways that I don't like. You know,
and
so I think
she also talks about how the portrayals of the husbands and boyfriends in This Is Me Now, they're all sort of an amalgam, and no one is meant to necessarily stand in for any one particular person and who's been in her life. Right.
And she even says, like, this is not necessarily me. The person I'm playing is just called artist, you know, but it's enough. It was an interesting thing. The whole thing with who might have been in this and was not is fascinating. Yeah. Why, who they are and what their excuses were, like, oh, they're busy, or they're just a no, or they didn't get back to us. Like, Taylor Swift isn't in this.
I love where she says, like, you know, they read the thing and they decide whether or not they want to do it, and if they don't, then they just say they're not available. Like, that's what people do. I've done that. You know?
There's a lot more candor here than I expected in all of this.
There is definitely, there are some moments that does feel like that we're seeing, you know, behind the veil, but at the same time, like, she so many times talks about how, like, she talks about art and artistry and her need to tell the story. And it's like, do you? I mean, it's hard to talk about that unless you are like Proust, you know, like it's like we're talking about a pop music album that is, yes, it is revelatory and it is personal and all of those things. But like, is it art on the level that the way you hear her talk about it, you think is going to be like this sort of life-changing thing? It's like, for you maybe, but I don't know that the rest of the world is you know, needs it on the level that you think they do.
Right. She even says no one's asking for a new J-Lo album.
True. This is
She
true. She does say
acknowledges as
that.
much, and just
Yeah.
like she wants to put that out there, and she gets teary eyed, going, "If I can find love and inspire someone else to find love." So just despite how long she's been doing this and how
Yeah.
jaded you would think that would make her, that little nugget of the hopeless romantic does seem like a genuine driving force for her.
Oh yeah, and like there seems to be like there's several moments where Ben Affleck is like, you don't have to prove anything to anyone, but clearly she feels like she does, you know. And I get it. If you are a woman in this industry, whether it's film, whether it's music, and you know, you commit the cardinal sin of going past a certain age, and or you commit the cardinal sin of having ever been considered sexy by someone, then you are constantly being asked to prove your bona fides as an actual artist and not just as, you know, eye candy. Like Charlize Theron had to make Monster to not be just seen as like the hot blonde lady, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, it is this, you are put in this situation where no matter how successful you become, you do feel called upon to sort of prove yourself. And so, okay, maybe I like this more than I thought. It is provocative, and it is opening up discussion and stuff. But at the same time, whenever somebody in that level of fame is talking about how like, oh, you're really going to see it all, you know, you're not. Of course, you're not. You know, but you're
it's still
seeing,
controlled.
Yes, but you're seeing more than we might have in other circumstances. I'll say that.
Okay, so what's your number then? Do you want to change your number, whatever it might have been?
Yeah, probably. I'll say like a 7. You know, I mean, again, I find a lot of this to be really indulgent. But again, and I'll say this: if you, and I've said before, if you're gonna watch one, watch them both.
Yeah, I'm going to say 8.3 because I was really entertained and I learned a lot and I enjoyed all the stuff with Ben Affleck. It's super funny. But there's way too much for her producing partners. Like it's way too flabby as far as like phone calls. Like I don't need to watch Elaine Goldsmith Thomas like working out in her gym. Like there's stuff that we don't need. This could have been a little tighter, but I enjoyed it very much. So The Greatest Love Story Never Told, which is now being told, is on Prime Video.